What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. The Blazers have a disappointing opening night, but we are glad to be back with another season of Blazers Uprise post-game shows. We will get into all the good. There wasn't much. We'll get into all the bad. There was a lot. It sucks to say, but that was what I was worried about. Given the preseason games, that's what Eric was worried about. This was basically an extension of the disasters we saw in Denver. But now these games actually count, and this team has some serious issues to work out. If you're new to us, we tell things like it is, and we are opinionated, and we do our best to back up every opinion we have. You might not agree with some of our opinions, you might agree with some, but we genuinely don't try and sugarcoat things. You know, we get hyped, we're fans, we wear our heart on our sleeves, but we also try and be logical and sensible and not just about a bunch of nonsense. So we'll see how this stream goes. I'm definitely going to go into a rant here in a sec. I know Eric Brandt is probably ready to rant as well, because that was a very frustrating game and included a lot of issues that probably should not be happening, right? All game long you heard excuse after excuse after excuse on the broadcast. I'll get into that a little bit, but honestly, there's no...
I was just going to say, oh, so we're not going to sit here and polish a turd like
yeah. Yeah, it was bad, and there is some things that should not be happening, and, you know, I guess you can excuse it with things, maybe, but for me, it's like, this team should not be playing this badly. It's too talented to be playing this badly. The problems are obvious. The problems, I think, have carried over from last year to this year's roster, and last year it was, we're injured, we don't have the talent. This year, I don't think you can make that excuse, and a lot of the problems that last year's team faced, I feel like are present with this team and evident right now. And all last season, I was trying to say, these issues aren't caused 100% by personnel, and I feel like now we have a much more talented team, and a lot of these issues still exist. So I'll get into the breakdown. I'll talk about our defensive schemes. I'll talk about some potential lineup issues that I've seen, and we'll get into it. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. We got a brand new graphical set for this season, as you see right now. Very excited to bring this to you. It might cause us to go live a couple minutes later than usual. Normally we would go live, 1-2 minutes after the game. It might be 5 minutes now, but these should be pretty easy to put together for each game. And I still want to go live as soon as possible before everything, wears off. So anyway, chat, give me your initial reactions from this game. Give me, maybe some optimism. I assume there's probably going to be a lot of negative things in chat, but if you're optimistic, I want to see that. I want to see if people are still optimistic about this season one game in. I will say this, all right? Let me start with this. The team we saw the first 6 minutes or so of the game was exactly the team that I was optimistic about. Their style of play, their defense, their ball movement, their player movement, Jerry Jones Jr. playing well, Nurkic playing well. Like, that starting lineup played phenomenal basketball for like 5 minutes. And I was so hyped. So I guess that's the silver lining, is at least I was able to be hyped for like a good 5 minutes or so. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's frustrating because you see what this team can be with that starting lineup, the way they play for 5 minutes, and then it just completely evaporates. You can look at that and be optimistic, but we're a long ways from it, considering for the rest of the game we didn't really see that team again, and I'll go into some of the reasons why. But yeah, let me set this up. I gotta get used to some of the graphical things we will be doing. So sorry if things are weird, but we'll go through the players as we do in every post-game show, but we'll go through the team stuff first. That is generally what we do. Guys gotta get comfortable with some of the graphical stuff that we're doing. So let me pull this back up here. Eric, give me your takeaways. I'll let you go off while
you were talking about this out. You were talking about the first few minutes of the game, and I think halfway through the first quarter we had assisted on every made basket. You'd love to see that, and it's no coincidence we were playing well and winning when that happened. And that's when the substitutions came in, and we started playing iso ball and not moving the ball at all. I think it was until the last play of the quarter where Dame drove and found Gary Trent Jr. for a three from the good start with lots of ball movement to the next point we got an assist even in the quarter. So you hate to see lineups that feature a lot of ISO players. You hate to see just stagnant offense not moving. Did we have a single play tonight with Derrick Jones Jr. going to the hoop? For the most part, we made him into a spot-up shooter, which is exactly what I was worried about when we signed him. Now, to be fair to him, he did look much improved shooting the ball, and if he knocks down threes like he did tonight, that might be a different story. But we got this guy to run a different offense, not to just put him in that role of the spot-up shooter in the corner and not move around and not do stuff to make him better on offense. Like, he should have had several backdoor or back screen cuts to the basket. I don't remember a single one in this game where he got action going towards the hoop. There was one play where Dame kind of lobbed it to him and he unfortunately missed two bunnies in a row. But like, that was just off of more like a scramble play. It wasn't like a design set or anything like that. For the most part, every single one of our sets was the same stupid crap where we just pass the ball to a big man or someone up top, and they hand off to one of our guards coming up away from the hoop. There's no action going towards the hoop. There's no momentum to get downhill towards the basket. It's all away from the basket or side to side. There's nobody moving off the ball. I'm so mad. It's just so frustrating. I don't think our coach knows how to implement any scheme other than what he's showing.
I mean, yeah, I'm probably going to go off for 5 minutes here, but
okay.
And I'm going to touch on many different issues, and we can kind of single them out after this. But so you start this game, team's playing well, right? And the Jazz, like, honestly, a lot of the times the Jazz scored in the first 6 minutes was like, oh, we didn't corral a loose ball, and they got to it and got a scramble play, you know, and that type of stuff will happen. And a lot of it was like we would get a hand on a pass, and then we'd try and go retrieve the loose ball, and they'd get it, and then we'd be out of position, that type of stuff. Like, honestly, I thought our defense was pretty good the first 6 minutes or so. The bench unit is awful. Okay, and that's the first thing I want to touch on here. The bench unit is awful, and it shouldn't be. We have a ton of offensive talent on this bench, but I have a serious issue with the way things are being ran with the bench lineup, and I have a serious issue with a specific pairing in that bench lineup. It seems like our bench unit, with all this offensive talent, we got Gary Trent Jr., we got Rodney Hood, I mean, we got Enes Kanter in the game. It seems like our offense off the bench is simply going to be give the ball to Melo no matter how hot or how cold he is, and he's just going to isolate and shoot a bunch of fadeaway mid-range shots. That's not good offense. Melo, if he's hot, can knock down those shots, but the problem is when he's not hot, those shots will completely take you out of a game and take your offense out of rhythm. And that was a big frustration of mine with Melo in the game, is he was settling for a bunch of contested fadeaway mid-range jumpers, and he wasn't hitting them, and it took the entire offense out of the rhythm, and that was a big problem early on when that bench unit got into the game, and they gave up a run at the end of the first and then at the start of the second. We should not be utilizing one player so heavily when we have that much offensive talent off the bench. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's very frustrating. And I feel like that was the turning point in the game, when that bench came in for the first time and their shot selection was terrible. And it's not just Melo. Rodney Hood shot 3 fadeaway contested mid-range jumpers, and Rodney Hood's kind of the same case. If he's hot, he can knock down those shots, but he's excelled. He excelled last season as a spot-up shooter, catching the ball like in the corner and hitting spot-up threes, and he's not getting any of those looks if we just throw the ball into Melo and isolate Melo. He didn't have a chance. He didn't even catch the ball once on the perimeter in a spot-up position. I don't think this entire game. He played 14 minutes. It was mostly like, okay, Melo's going to go one-on-one. If he can't score, then we'll give it to Kanter, and he'll post up and go one-on-one. If not, we'll give it to Rodney Hood, and he can go one-on-one. And it's just terrible offense, and it was horrible in this game. That's why you had Rodney Hood going 0 for 3. You had Carmelo. He got hot late, but early in that first half, he was he was very, very bad on the offensive end. And that stagnant basketball seemed to carry over into the starting lineup. Once the starting lineup got back on the court, it seemed like we had stagnant basketball for the rest of the game, whereas before that bench lineup came in, we were moving the ball well, and our offense looked good and had a rhythm to it. And there's just absolutely no excuse for that. There's no excuse to consistently run one pass or no pass offense and just constant isolation. That part was extremely frustrating. The other part I want to touch on the bench, and I'll let you just touch on the bench lineup, and then I can get into later parts in the game. But the other thing with the bench lineup is you cannot, absolutely cannot play Carmelo Anthony and Enes Kanter together. You can live with two bad defensive guards in the backcourt, in my opinion, because if you have good defensive front court players, they can help clean up those mistakes. I feel like defense is more... It's more important out of front court players than it is from guards. Not to say it's not important from guards, but you need front court defenders. You cannot play a front court lineup of Carmelo Anthony and Enes Kanter together. They struggled mightily on the defensive end in this game and in the preseason. You cannot get away with that, because even when we have spurts where, Enes Kanter scored, he was 7 for 7 in this game, played well offensively, and Melo got hot late, we didn't gain any ground because it's like we're giving up buckets every single time down on the other end. And the problem is with Kanter is Terry Stotts, it seems like, is only going to drop him. And you pointed this out on Twitter. We saw him hedge once, and he hedged very, very well, and it was much better than when he was dropping. I just don't understand why you always have to drop Enes Kanter when he's getting scored on every time. I know conventional logic is you can't hedge Enes Kanter on a ball screen, and you can't bring him up to deal with the screen, but he if he's really struggling sagging and dropping off the pick and roll, and they're getting bucket after bucket after bucket, why not change it up? We literally went from down 5 to down 20 because we were giving up bucket after bucket after bucket, and Stotts didn't sub out one of Kanter or Melo. Stotts didn't change up the defense at all, and that's the part where it's like, what are we doing? Why are we coaching so robotically that we don't make an adjustment until we're down 22? What does Terry Stotts see with a Kanter-Melo pairing that has him so that he thinks it can work on the defensive end? I don't understand the pairing of that. If you want to play both of them, then stagger Rocco and play Rocco with Kanter and then Melo with Nurkic or something, just so you have at least one good front court defender. Or play Giles, man. Giles came in and looked solid. He had a good defensive play. He had a 3. We need one good defensive player off the bench in that front court lineup. Kanter and Melo are probably our 2 worst defenders. You cannot get away with that. And even in the second half when we had the bench lineup in, we still were running that duo, even though, what did we need? We needed aggressive defense to try and create turnovers, to get out and run, to get quick buckets to bring us back in the game. But we were dropping off Kanter in the second half too, getting scored on at will. They were winding the clock, and we had Dame and CJ in. It's okay, if we're really going to try and come back, you got to ratchet up the defense, you got to get stops, put Rocco back in the game, put Nurkic back in the game, or if you really don't want to try and come back, then bench Dame and CJ. Either fully try to come back, or don't. Don't play it in the middle with a scheme that's getting abused, with a defensive front court pairing that's getting killed, in a defensive scheme that isn't predicated to helping you come back in a game because it's conservative and not aggressive. I don't understand that. All the basketball I saw with the bench unit in the game just baffled my mind, from the way they were playing offense to the defensive end. Just every single part of it baffled my mind, and a big part of it is Stotts' decision to play those 2 guys together, to only run drop scheme when Enes Kanter is in the game, even if it's getting absolutely killed, and just make no adjustments. That Stotts has some responsibility in that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say the previous 3 games were just preseason, but he went to Kanter first off the bench every time when the game was slipping away from us. And what happens? It gets completely away from us, and we have no chance to come back in any of these games because we're down 20, 30 points instead of 10 or so. And it was, I don't know, it's glaringly obvious to me at those points of the game, we needed some energy, someone to come in and, I mean, he might not make the right plays, but Giles is going to bring that energy. He's going to make some fun stuff happen. We just needed a spark somehow. Kanter is a solid player, but he's not going to spark a team to go on a run or anything like that. He's just going to do his job and play well, get some rebounds, and set some picks, and that's not what we needed at that point of the game. Instead of letting the game get out of control, you got to bring in someone who's going to come in with some energy, maybe grab a board. You saw Giles grab a board when he played at the end and dribbled the ball up the court. It looked like a point guard out there. Like, he could have made some plays happen for someone else, maybe got a Dame or a CJ involved because they weren't having to bring the ball up off the dribble. Just stuff like that. It just drives me crazy. I know part of it is, with Cantor or with Gobert and Favors, he's probably thinking that those guys are a little too big for Giles to maybe handle, but at the same time, like, it's not like Cantor handled them very well on the defensive end either. So why not just get back to getting some? And it's the same thing with Little last year. There's so many times we could have brought in Little to maybe provide a spark because you knew he was going to play with energy and maybe get a dunk or make a good cut and do something to maybe just jumpstart the team a little bit. And it's not going to happen just when the bench comes in. Oh, let's post up Cantor, let's post up Melo, let's just stand around and watch someone go one-on-one every time and just take turns doing it. That's what we told everyone going into the season. If that didn't change, it's not going to matter who our personnel is. And it's frustrating to me that we're already seeing it exploited in the first game of the season without even trying these new things that we were supposed to be trying, especially, like you said, with the bench unit that completely stagnated the game when they came in. There's no excuse for not running some more design sets and making sure those guys move the ball a little better before just taking turns and shooting so much.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, man. And people say Terry Stotts is this offensive genius, man. I don't understand how an offensive genius is like last in the league in assists and runs a super stagnant offense. I don't know what the genius part of that is, but maybe I'm missing something. But here's the thing, like, you can't excuse this game. We were down more than 30 to a team we are more talented than on opening night. Sure, there could be like a few reasons why they might be more well-rounded at this point in the season and more tuned up or whatever you want to say, but we were down more than 30. There's no excuse for that. They were basically, I felt like they weren't really clowning us, but it felt like we were being clowned at the same time. You know what I mean? It was kind of embarrassing the way we played tonight. It's like if fans around the league are looking at a box score and hearing all this hype about how Portland has this good roster, which we do, and they look at a box score, oh dang, Utah's beating Portland 82-52. That's not okay. Like, it's there's no reason that should happen in the first place. There's no excuse for that. And I know Dame was off, and I know Dame didn't shoot well, but that doesn't matter. We shouldn't be down 30 points with Dame not playing well. We have enough talent for other guys to pick up the slack. We shouldn't have to rely on Dame scoring 40 points a game in order to barely claw out wins against teams that were better than. That's a last year thing because we had injured personnel and our roster wasn't that good. That's why we upgraded the personnel. That's why we went out and got defenders in Derrick Jones Jr. and Robert Covington. That's why, we got a good offensive bench. We got good offensive players back that weren't healthy last year, and Rodney Hood and Yusuf Nurkic. And I mean, Derrick Jones Jr., if he's shooting the three well, should be he's an elite cutter as well. He's a good offensive player to throw in there as well. And then Robert Covington, I know he struggled tonight, but he didn't really get a clean look because we weren't really moving the ball. That's the thing, is like, Covington thrives because guys will leave him if you move the ball and collapse the defense, and then you kick out to him, he'll have open threes, he'll knock those down. Thing is, he could not get a clean look because we didn't do the first part of that. We didn't collapse the defense, we didn't move the ball. That's the problem. Is like, a guy like Covington is effective in an offense that moves the ball. He's not that effective if he's being guarded and you're just isolating guys. Like, sure, you can get guys hot and they can kind of carry the team in isolation, but it's not a recipe for consistent success. It's a recipe for, okay, well, if Dame and CJ were hot tonight, yeah, maybe we win this game. Maybe we do. Maybe if we play a little bit better defense combined with that, maybe we win by 8 points, 10 points. But if those guys aren't hot and Carmelo isn't hot when you bring him in the game, you're just going to get completely shot out of the game because you're not getting good shots consistently. Your odds of success offensively rise with the better shots you get. And the shots they got outside the first 6 minutes, I thought they got great shots the first 6 minutes. Outside of the first 6 minutes, the shots they got in this game were terrible. They were terrible. That's the thing, is like, I understand if we get good shots and miss, okay, that is a make or miss league, that happens. When we're getting terrible shots, That's the issue, is the terrible shot selection. And that's what our offense resulted in, especially with the bench lineup, but even the starting lineup. Like, Dame got a couple clean looks, and it was obvious that he was out of rhythm, but he couldn't really get any space. He couldn't really get going. He was being double teamed all game, and we weren't exploiting that. When we brought a big up, we had better success defensively, but Utah was still able to exploit it here and there. But it was like every time Dane gets trapped, we can't exploit it at all, which is another issue that I've had with this team for years. It's just kind of the same repeated issues that I saw last year that are present with this team, but the personnel excuse is not going to be an excuse for it. Sure, we can fix these issues because these are fixable issues, in my opinion. We're not, like, that's the positive about them not being personnel issues. Is like, if it's a personnel issue, then you can't change it unless you change your personnel. But if it's not personnel issues, it's more frustrating for me because there's less of an excuse for them. But they're also leave me a little bit more optimistic because they should be fixable because you're not limited by your personnel. So, I mean, we're going to see how this team bounces back, but these issues should not be this big. Some of these issues should not exist, and you can't excuse them away. So I don't understand how any, like, Blazer fan could be like, oh, yeah, we're fine. There's no reason to be critical. It's just game one. Like, that type of mindset is what we had at the start of last season, and those issues carried on throughout the entire season. So we got to get right now. We got to improve, and we got to figure this stuff out, or we're going to be looking at a play-in game and potentially not even making the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's, to me, if we would have been talking about how, oh, we didn't drop the big once tonight, or we tried to not do that as much as possible, and it's just going to take some time to, like, learn the defense or whatever. But no, we dropped the big a ton, and they killed us on it. And then, like, if you talk about, oh, we're running some new things on offense, so maybe they just aren't fully on the same page as a unit. It'll take some time for them to get on the same page and learn the plays, and they haven't had a lot of practice time. No, we were running all the same crap from last year. There wasn't a single play different tonight. I mean, we ran the first play of the game was like a pass to Nurk with CJ designed back cut or whatever. That was a play we've run before. It's not like anything new, and it's not anything like special, but like there's options like that open all the time. So it's just frustrating to me that we lost in this manner, not because we were trying to do new things, but because we did the old things and it killed us. That's my problem, and that's why I've given up. I'm sorry. It took one game for me. I do not feel like Stotts has the ability to coach this team any differently than he has for 8 years. He might have the best intentions in the world. I think that he does. He is really genuinely trying to. I just don't feel like he understands how to coach differently than he has in the past. And it's not going to help him. And no one on his staff knows. I know they bring on Jim Boylan or whatever, but like, I don't feel like anyone on this staff knows how to help him either. And it's just going to be a wash this year, unfortunately.
If this team is playing like this 15, 16 games into the season, they will be like 4-12 while only playing maybe 3 teams that are more talented than them. If we're like 4-12, Stotts, I think, is getting fired. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's any way you can excuse it. It seems like he's on the hot seat this year. It seems like there's a lot more pressure on him to perform. And it's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like Neil Olshey has to be realizing some of these issues aren't going to change as well. Like, it's either gonna, Stotts is going to finally freaking change and he's gonna save his job, or I think he's not gonna change. Olshey's gonna realize, wow, this guy really cannot adapt at all, and he's going to be gone because of that. I think, in either way, like, okay, cool. Hopefully Stotts changes for the better, or we get a new coach. Like, I'm cool with either of those, It might take us having a bad start to the season, but maybe the team, if they can still get into the playoffs, would be better prepared for the playoffs under a different coach. So that's why it's like, I'm not giving up on anything. It's just like, either way, I feel like this organization is going to find a way out of this mess, because Stotts is finally on the hot seat more than he's been in his entire tenure here, in my opinion. And either he has to figure it out or he's gone. Either way, either option kind of gets us out of this mess, in my opinion, because, dude, you can't coach the game robotically. And for me, it's just like Terry Stotts has become so robotic. The only changes was, we're going to bring more ball pressure up on screens. That was the only change Terry Stotts made, and he's already resorted back to primarily what he did last year in game 1 of the regular season. And you heard a quote from him, and it was like pulling teeth in order for him to change any sort of his defensive philosophies. You cannot be that stubborn in the NBA. You cannot be that close-minded to anything else other than what you're comfortable with. You have to adapt. You have to adjust in the NBA, and the lack of adaptability and innovation and adjustments is why I don't think he's a good coach, is why I think he's overrated as the Trailblazers coach. And we're either going to see him do those things and improve in my eyes, or he's not going to do those things, and I think a lot more people will start to realize the true issue here. And either way, like, I'm cool with either. You know, I'd rather Stotts just improve and figure this out. But you know, it's not like last season where it's like he's guaranteed to be the head coach all season. So I mean, I guess that gives me a little hope. And it's just you gotta adapt and innovate. I don't understand why it's so hard for some people to realize that is a must-have in the NBA. It's a must-have in the playoffs, especially. I don't understand why that gets so overlooked by a lot of Blazer fans in regards to the way this team is coached. It's just like you got to adapt, you got to adjust, you got to be innovative, and he doesn't seem to want to do that or be able to do that.
Yeah, and once again, this is based off 8 years of data, not just one game as well. But again, I would be fine sitting here saying we got blown out, but I liked that they were trying new sets on offense. I liked their approach to the defense, but I didn't like any of that stuff. So that's why I'm so frustrated. And I'm just sitting there watching them continually do the same thing. I mean, you even called it at like halftime or in the middle of the third quarter. You said, watch, in the third quarter, we'll just do exactly the same thing we did in the first half. You listed 3 things. We did exactly those 3 things in the second half, just like we did in the first half. Nope. No adapting, no changing, nothing at halftime like, oh, you know what, maybe let's try Giles with the second unit instead of Canner in this game because this isn't working. Or let's do something different with this situation, or play this defense, this pick and roll a different way. No, it's not. Like, he doesn't know how to make adjustments in game. He doesn't know how to make adjustments in the playoffs. So even if this roster is good enough to carry him into the playoffs, we're not going to win a title or get close to winning a title with him as coach because he does not know how to fix these things within a game.
Yep. My tweet was ridiculous things we could do, and then in parentheses, we'll probably do in the second half. And the 3 things I listed were run some one-pass, one-on-one offense. That's exactly what we did. Drop the big on every pick and roll. That's pretty much exactly what we did. Play Melo and Cantor together with no Giles. That's pretty much exactly what we did. And we made no ground. Shocker. The same issues that we saw in the first half were present in the second half because we didn't change a thing. Like that, and that goes back to the lack of adaptability and the lack of adjustments. Like, how do you not adjust? You're down big at halftime. How do you not adjust? Is there a Stotts fan in the chat? Can somebody please explain to me how you can be down like 20 at halftime and not make a single adjustment and how that's justified? Can somebody please explain that to me?
It's already been explained, Tori. It's because we didn't rebound well and we missed shots and they made shots.
Yeah, basketball never. See, here's the thing, guys. Basketball's never as simple as like simply making and missing shots. Why did we hear that all last year, and why are we hearing that in the first game this year? I understand on a one-game basis if the shot selection is equal, but it's not. Oh, we missed shots and they made shots. If the shot selection is much better by them and much worse by us, like that's the thing. You got to take into account a shot selection, and their shots were far better. Their shot selection was far better than ours this game. They got far better shots than us this game, okay? If that's the case, you got to look at, okay, why are they getting far better shots than us? You can look at our defense giving up far better shots, and you can look at our offense not getting good shots. And both those things were present, and that's what it boils down to. It's never as simple as they made shots, we missed shots. I don't understand how you can watch this game and think we got just as good of shots as they did. I don't understand how somebody
not even
can
close. Not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I don't understand how somebody can watch this game and come to that conclusion. I mean, maybe you do, and you're entitled to your opinion. If you think that, great, like whatever. I just don't really understand how you can come to that conclusion, and I think that's what the game essentially can boil down to is, okay, what type of shots are you getting up? giving up and what type of shots are you getting. And sometimes you can get better shots than the other team, but you're just simply cold and you miss more and you lose because of that. That can be a thing. But that wasn't the case tonight. So that we missed shots, they made shots excuse does not fly and does not apply to the issues we saw tonight. The rebounding, or do you want to touch on that before I get to the rebounding? Because I do want to touch on it.
I was going to say, we did blow a 3-on-1 fast break with Dane with a wide open three, and Trent missed a dunk and stuff like that. But that's not what coaches are talking about when they say we missed shots and they made shots. Those two baskets go in, it wouldn't have been the difference between winning this game or not. And that's why I hate the freaking we just didn't hit shots argument, because Utah got any shot they wanted every single time down the court. They just torched our defense. That's not about them making shots. That's about them being NBA players and it being literally simple and easy to score the basketball whenever they want. And they didn't even have to try to get good shots. They set one pick and would have a wide open guy for 3-pointers. We didn't even go up on him or stop it. And the Jazz killed us in the games we lost to them in previous years with the same exact formula. And there's just no changing or no fixing it. It's not about them making shots. We know they will make shots if you leave them wide the frick open. That's what they do. They're NBA players. They were the best 3-point shooting team in the league last year. We should have had a defense designed to not let them shoot threes the entire game. Let them freaking get lay-ins or whatever. Just don't let them shoot threes. Something just try to run them off the 3-point line.
How many times did you see Donovan Mitchell or Joe Ingles or Jordan Clarkson literally come off a pick and roll and just dribble right up to the 3-point line and shoot a completely uncontested wide open three? That happened throughout the game. That happened constantly.
Also, I got to talk about this. It's been 8 years, too. The teams with, Wesley Matthews, Batum, those guys were smart players, so they usually didn't have this happen. But the frickin' falling asleep and over-helping off ball is still an issue. And this is an issue because they do not properly hold players accountable when they are off ball, and they do not properly watch film on how to correct these things. It's been a problem. There was a play where there was a side pick and roll with Gobert and I forget who it was, Ingles or someone, and Mitchell's just standing up at the 3-point line guarding with Dame. Dame turns around, just stands, watches the ball. They kick out to Mitchell. He hits a three before Dame even turns around. And does Stotts chew Dame out? When Nurk fell asleep on defense the other day against Denver, no, he just goes about his business or whatever. And I'm not saying it was necessarily Dame's should be chewed out, but it's just frustrating to me how they hold certain players accountable, but the players that play the most and need to be taught proper technique and not to fall asleep off ball and not to overhelp in all these situations I keep on doing it time after time again. And this was a problem all last year, and people kept telling us he doesn't have the personnel to fix it. But you can't tell me it's a personnel issue when someone is in the wrong spot off ball. That they're NBA players. If you teach them where to be and how to defend properly when they're not guarding the ball, they shouldn't be out of position as much as they do. And that's why I have no faith that this will ever change.
Yeah, I mean, where you position yourself defensively is not based off individual attributes. That is a misconception that I've seen a ton. And here's the thing is, yes, okay, if you bring in a player that doesn't really know how to play off-ball defense, you can't blame the coach for that. But here's the thing. Proper coaching will help that player improve their positioning because their positioning isn't limited by their individual attributes, right? It's more of a defensive awareness thing, and it's something that can be coached. It's a very coachable skill, coaching guys how to help properly and where to position themselves defensively. It becomes a coaching issue when players don't improve all season long. And that's what I was saying last year. I was saying, yes, we don't have good defensive personnel, but there's things that should be improving defensively that aren't, and that's not okay, and that's unacceptable. And part of that is due to the coaching, because good coaching, in my opinion, would improve our defensive positioning from bad defenders and from good defenders. Bad defenders actually have more room for improvement. So you can make the argument, it's just as easy to help these guys improve their defensive positioning and some of their technique things, because a lot of times bad defenders, a big reason why they're bad is simple technique things that are fixable. And some guys end up fixing them and some guys don't. That's why you see like good defensive teams where they can bring in a bad defender and turn him into a decent defender. You look at like just a random example off the top of my head. You look at when San Antonio brought in Patty Mills, who is like looked at as the terrible defender his first 2 years in Portland. Greg Popovich turned him into a decent defender. Like San Antonio's problem right now is just offensively for the most part. Defensively, they're okay, and you might have some guys that you bring in and are limited physically, so you can't have anything but a bottom 10 defense. But in terms of like intangibles, those things are coachable. Patty Mills is decently quick laterally and plays with a high motor and a lot of energy. A lot of his defensive issues coming into the league were just technique things that got cleaned up, and that's why he became a decent defender in San Antonio. You can bring up a number of different examples like that, but the point being is there's a lot of intangible issues with like a guy like CJ McCollum that are fixable mistakes, but aren't being fixed and aren't being held accountable and aren't being improved, aren't being coached into him, haven't been coached into him for 5 years. Like there's no reason he hasn't improved from 5 years ago to now on anything defensively. That's not okay. He's been terrible defensively for 5 years, and it's not okay. Like the only reason you should be terrible, like there's no reason you should be terrible defensively for 5 years unless you don't dedicate yourself to it, which I don't know, kind of seems like an issue with CJ. And if you aren't held accountable and aren't coached properly and aren't coachable. But CJ's a smart guy. I don't think it's that CJ isn't coachable on that end. I think it's we don't put enough emphasis and we don't properly coach our defenders on how to help properly and our help side positioning. So it's a case where like guys won't help at certain times when they need to, and then when they don't need to, they'll just completely leave their guy and stand in the paint and not have an effect on anything. And then the guy who's driving the ball or dribbling the ball will pass it to that guy's defender who's wide open on the 3-point line because somebody overhelped. That is a big issue that we saw last year, and it's a big issue that we're seeing this year. Derrick Jones Jr. does it, even though he's a good defender. Robert Covington hasn't really had that issue, but we'll see. We'll see if it affects the good defenders we brought in. It's just been a constant issue on this team, and it's very frustrating because it's fixable.
Yeah, and then to address the defensive rebounding, I mean, this is another technique that we haven't done in recent years, boxing out. And it was another problem tonight. We just turn around and stand and watch. But I don't know how many times I have to say this. If you are watching film as a team and you watch those type of plays where a team gets 3 offensive rebounds and you have to watch yourself not box out as your guy gets 3 offensive rebounds in a row, that is embarrassing, and that helps you focus harder and make it so that is not a problem in the future. So in my opinion, we are not doing teaching these guys properly. That, look, I mean, I would not want to give up an offensive rebound, and if I had to watch film knowing that I was going to give up an offensive rebound and had to watch the whole team like make fun of me or like be embarrassed for myself that I didn't box out and was just standing there or fell asleep on defense and got on Shaq and the Fool or whatever, like that would motivate me to never do those things, right? I would be like boxing out as soon as the ball went up every single time because I don't want to be put in a position where I'm being made fun of or being embarrassed because people are watching film. And you can make that case for every person on this team. It's embarrassing, man. I'm embarrassed that I don't even play for the team at how poorly we played tonight. And then, so people are saying that's not Stott's fault. But, like, this is a product when you don't ever have good rebounders on this team. Like, Dame and CJ are good rebounders for guards. We have Cantor and Nurk who are good rebounders. There's a lot of people who are good rebounders. There should be no reason why we're getting killed on the boards like in this game. And it might happen in a game or two, but that combined with all the stuff we saw last year and all the stuff that we heard they were going to change and didn't do tonight just has me not able to just dismiss that as a one-game instance.
Yeah.
It's more than that.
Yeah, and I mean, if it improves, then okay, they're putting enough emphasis on it, but it didn't really improve last year. We sucked at boxing out last year, and here's the thing. Stotts is partly responsible if he's not holding players accountable for boxing out, because that's such a simple, easy thing to do. That's basically another thing that isn't limited to individual attributes. Anybody can box out, and a guy crashing the offensive boards can't just run through a guy boxing out, so it doesn't come down to strength necessarily. Yes, if there's a long rebound, a guy can jump up and rebound over the guy boxing him out. We saw that with I saw CJ box out Gobert today, and Gobert still got a rebound. But those plays are understandable, like that happens. The problem is we gave up so many offensive rebounds because we aren't boxing out, and then it doesn't seem like our lack of box outs are really being held accountable. It becomes the coach's responsibility to hold his players accountable if they're not doing a very simple fundamental thing, right? I know this is the NBA and you're not going to be as hard on players as you are in like high school or college, but this is the NBA. You should be boxing out. There's no excuse to not box out. It's such a simple fundamental thing that you get taught if you play second grade Pee-wee basketball. That's one of the first things they teach you. Oh, when somebody shoots, turn like this, box a guy out. It is very simple. I learned that in second grade, man. It's not a technique that you don't learn until you get into the NBA. This is a technique that these players should have known for decades, right? If you're talking about guys that are 25 to 35, a guy like Carmelo didn't box out. He's been in the NBA 17 years. He was in college before that. He played high school basketball before that. This is a thing that transcends different levels of basketball. It's not an advanced NBA technique. It's a freaking box out. It's a freaking box out. And we don't box out, and I don't see Stotts chewing anybody out. Boxing out takes less hustle than like Yusuf Nurkic guarding that Jokic cut that he gave up and then got chewed out about, right? That takes more hustle than simply turning and putting a body on someone. But Stotts, I don't see Stotts ever chewing anybody out for a lack of box out. It's just like, oh, dang, okay. Post up Melo on the offense, right after we give up a bucket because somebody crashed the boards and we didn't box out. Like, that type of stuff you can hold Stotts accountable for, in my opinion, because boxing out is such a simple thing, and that's kind of a microcosm of some of like the technique and fundamental issues that this team had last year and seems to have, or at least had in game one and during the preseason this year. It's a microcosm of some of our issues, and it's a microcosm of how they're not being held accountable enough, in my opinion. And if they are held, here's the thing, if they are held accountable enough, it'll improve. If it's not being held accountable enough, it probably won't improve. So we'll see on that. But that you can apply that to different things other than boxing out too.
And so I was just going to mention, I've been waiting to mention this guy's name. Paulie Ross just mentioned him. Zach Collins. This is why anyone who says Zach Collins is trash is out of their mind, because Zach Collins, we are 9-3 the last two seasons in games he started. He is a glue guy who helps stabilize a lot of these problems, cover up for mistakes that happen. It doesn't show up in the box score, but a simple box out and making sure his guy never gets an offensive rebound in a game, stuff like that is so important to a team like this, winning at a high level. And it's the difference between being a winning team right now and being a sub 500 team, which we've been since he's gotten hurt. And I'm never going to be impressed by him scoring like 20 points and averaging 10 rebounds a game. Heck, he doesn't even average that many rebounds for how good of an impact he has on the rebounding end. But you can't just look at a box score, and this is the problem a lot of people had with Whiteside. He averaged almost 15 rebounds a game at some points, and it still was like a negative effect on rebounding. Like,
yeah, we still rebounded awful with that right. Guy who's like the best statistical rebounder, but that's because A, he chased rebounds, stole rebounds from teammates, and B, he didn't box out and give up a lot of offensive boards, right? Mm-hmm. I'd rather have the guy who doesn't go get the rebounds but helps his team gets the rebound more. It doesn't matter who grabs it. What matters is that we don't give up offensive rebounds, and Zach Collins boxes out really well. People were like, oh, he's a mediocre defender. He only averages 8 rebounds per game. But he boxes out consistently and keeps guys off the offensive glass, and other guys on our team grab rebounds, right? You can't just base the impact on rebounding based off rebounds per game. That is not, it just doesn't, it doesn't work, because if you did that, it's like, dang, Hassan Whiteside is twice the rebounder Zach Collins is, but given how bad we rebounded last year, if we played Zach Collins to start in center all year, if Zach Collins was healthy and we played him instead of Hassan Whiteside, I don't think our rebounding would be any worse, despite us going from a 15 rebound per game guy to 7-8 rebound per game guy. So that's the thing, is like, fans underrate little things, and I feel like Zach Collins has now become very overrated because people kind of either forget the little things that he brings to the table, or they don't value those little things enough. You got a guy that can protect the rim, can knock down threes, and does a bunch of little things to help the team win. Like, dude, just think about the first half, all right? And like Melo, when he gets hot, oh, he's so flashy, he's so good. But you're just isolating Melo the whole time, and he's shooting a bunch of mid-range turnaround fadeaways that he's missing, and it's not good shots. And then on the other end, he's playing terrible defense. Like, I would rather have a guy who doesn't score, but just spots up on the three-point line and spaces the floor for other guys, and maybe helps our offense, actually move the ball a little bit better. And then on the defensive end, he can play some defense and box out. Like, that type of player isn't flashy at all, but they help you win basketball games. They get underrated because of that. So, dude, like, once Collins is healthy, I hope he's healthy soon. I honestly think the front court off the bench needs to be Collins and Giles. It needs to be Collins and Giles. You got CJ, you got Trent, you got Hood. Giles can score a little bit. Collins can knock down a three. Like, you'd have a chance defensively. Things wouldn't be so stagnant. I mean, I'm not against keeping Melo in the rotation. I just think he needs to change the way he plays. I do want to talk about Melo. If you want to touch on anything,
let me just say one more thing about the rebounding. So this is going to seem weird, but we're terrible at closing out too. Mm-hmm. So here's the problem. At least 3 times in the first half, I saw a kick out to a shooter, pump fake, guy goes flying past him, takes one dribble or one sidestep, shoots a three, makes it, right? The problem is when he misses those, we have 5 on 4. So you have 4 guys boxing out 5. And if it's a long rebound off a 3, then at the same time you're going to have missed numbers rebounding. So the problem is we're so out of position on all these plays that when the shot does go up, it is a factor of our scheme defensively, because like when we're dropping the big and he shoots a 3, he's not in position to box out his guy either. That guy is already behind him towards the hoop, or is like popping out, so he has a lane to run downhill to get a rebound. And it's because we're not good at all these things defensively and schematically that cause us to be poor rebounders too. It's not just a simple as boxing out versus not boxing out. We're out of position both to get shooters and to rebound. So like we're stuck in the middle way too often, and that's a coaching thing. Like we need to play. We're always scrambling on defense out of position. There has to be some sort of stability where players know where they're supposed to be and can run schemes to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to improve. And this is a coaching thing. I don't care what anyone says. We have different personnel this year. We've had different personnel the last 3 years. It's not a personnel thing to be in the right positions on defense. But go ahead on Melo.
Yeah, so this is kind of another coaching thing, but like we can't just force feed Melo the ball offensively, and I've talked about this a bit. But dude, when he started actually trying to get to the rim, he looked solid, and he got to the rim, and he got inside, and I think he drew a foul, attacking the rim, and he got a couple buckets. It's like, I don't understand why he loves to settle for contested mid-range fadeaway jumpers so much. Like, spot up, shoot some catch and shoot threes. He didn't shoot one, right? And that's the product of ball movement and us simply not moving the ball with the bench unit and just throwing it into Melo in the post. That's why he shot 12 shots and 0 threes, 0 catch and shoot threes. Like, there was plays where he had a line to drive to the rim and probably could have gotten a layup, and he settled for a mid-range shot. I think his first shot was like that. He made a pass fake. His defender completely bit on the pass fake, and he had a wide open lane to just go to the rim. And maybe if, I think Gobert was pretty far off, he probably could have gotten it. But if Gobert rotates over, then make the dump-off pass to the big man. That type of basketball works. The type of basketball that doesn't work is settling for mid-range jumpers when you're cold and just settling for mid-range fadeaways. That's such a terrible shot. That's such a bad shot. The only reason we should be shooting that shot, a contested mid-range fadeaway, is if we have at least 10 seconds or less on the shot clock, but preferably only if we have 5 seconds or less on the shot clock. But it's like, we'll dribble the ball down the court, pass to Melo, and he will isolate back, turn around, fade away jumper. And it's not efficient. I'd be okay with that if he made 50% of them, but he doesn't. Last year, he didn't. He shot a very bad percentage on those shots. This year, like just game one, and honestly, the last 3 preseason games too, very inefficient on those shots. That type of offense is super inefficient. Nobody gets in a rhythm. It stagnates everything, and it kills our entire bench unit. It does. If he's making them, then yes, he can carry the offense, but our bench unit is too talented to be playing that type of basketball. And at some point, it's going to have to come down to somebody is going to have a talk with Melo about his style of play and fix that. Or, in my opinion, he probably doesn't deserve to play over a guy like Zach Collins, because we need the little things that Zach Collins provides. I think Melo can still be an efficient, effective player in this league if he would just play a different style of basketball, but the types of shots he settles for kind of shoots himself in the foot. So that's the thing. It's not like he doesn't have the talent to be somewhat effective. It's the style in which he plays that I have an issue with, and this is why I wasn't like excited to have him back, and I try and give him chance after chance after chance. In the playoffs last season, he seemed to kind of embrace that style of basketball a little bit. He's still isolated here and there, but he was playing with the starting lineup and playing off ball and shooting catch and shoot threes and playing better defense than he is right now. It looks like he's picked up a little bit of that weight back. So like in the bubble, he was solid for us, but he shot a higher percentage on threes in the bubble than he did twos, and that's just a perfect example of the kind of the issue here is like he should be used as a spot up guy and maybe attacking closeouts, and then if he gets hot, okay, maybe you run it a little bit, but it shouldn't be the staple of your bench offense. Our bench is way too good for that, and it's gonna have to become a thing where somebody has to talk with him. Like for all the things we said about Melo's legacy and protecting Melo's legacy, you have to prioritize team success over protecting an individual player's legacy. And the type of basketball that he's playing with the bench unit that we've seen so far this preseason is not conducive for team success. So what? Are you going to bench him? Oh, but that's not protecting his legacy if you bench him, right? So it's like that's the thing. It's like Olshey pitched Melo on coming back by, yeah, we want to protect your legacy. But that put the team in between a rock and a hard place, because if he plays like this, he should be benched for Giles. Run Giles out there with Kanter. You have a good defensive big next to Kanter, and he isn't ball dominant and doesn't stagnate the offense. Like Giles is probably a better option than Melo right now. So it's like, okay, you either make that change and kind of go back on your promise about protecting his legacy, or the team's success is going to suffer. And team is above player. So it's like at some point there's going to have to be a hard decision that's made. Either Stott's going to have to actually hold a future Hall of Famer accountable. I'm not confident on that happening. Or we're going to have to change the lineup and not play Melo as much, or not play Melo at all if he continues to play that style of play, and that would go back on our promise for protecting his legacy. Either way, we're in a very tough spot with him already, in my opinion, and that's why I wasn't like super excited to bring him back.
See, here's where I disagree with you. Didn't shoot a single three tonight. So, like, once again, I hate to be a broken record, but when we come out of a timeout and the play is to post up Melo, and we saw that at least 3 times tonight, where a play out of a timeout with a full shot clock was to just post up Melo. That is not on Melo, I don't think. Like, he's just doing the play as is told, right? So I feel like would be fine. Huh?
Fair point. Yeah, that is a fair point.
So like, I feel like Melo I don't mind him posting up and doing stuff like you said if it's later in the shot clock. And I say the same thing about CJ. Like when he goes one-on-one and is just doing his CJ breakdown, fancy dribbling and stuff. And I have no problem with that if it's at the end of the shot clock and we tried some things real quick and they didn't work out. We had a little bit of action going. It wasn't open. And then we're like, here, Melo, go post up, save us. But when our offense is only, let's post up Kanter, let's post up Melo, let's just throw it in the post. And then the other 4 guys are they're not even moving. Like, I mean, he doesn't even have an option to pass the ball because no one's moving, no one's open. Like, they're not screening for each other or doing anything off ball. So, like, he has no choice but to shoot sometimes. And that's, like, designed by our offense. And that's the frustrating part to me is, like, it looks like Melo's, like ruining our offense or something, but he's not. That's our offense. Like, seriously, that's all we have is ISO and stuff like that. So, like, what are we supposed to do if we're not giving the ball to ISO players? And that's what's got me so frustrated and down about this performance tonight, is because we're hoping with this different personnel. I mean, you saw how upset Tori and I got when we signed someone who was a non-shooter in free agency. Mm-hmm. Like, we thought that was the signal, especially after the comments, that the offense was going to change and not rely on this ISO crap. And so that's not Melo's fault, in my opinion. So he's getting killed tonight, I think, unfairly, because he's just doing, like, if a coach calls for you to ISO, pick it, like, in the post out of a timeout, like, Melo's like, okay, I'll do that. Like, that's my thing. Like, that's not his fault, I don't think. I mean...
Yeah, yes. I mean, yeah, that part isn't, but, like, attack more. Like, when he started attacking, he had some success. And in the first half, he was just settling for mid-range turnarounds. And it's not like if he gets the ball in the post that he has to shoot. Okay, he doesn't have to settle every time he touches the ball in the post. He doesn't have to settle for a mid-range turnaround. He can pass the ball out and then go set a screen. And, like, it's freelance and it's stupid because it shouldn't be the automatic play caller every time down. I agree with that. But it's like, I agree with you partially that, like, yeah, it's not really his fault if we just continue isolating him and nobody's moving. But also he has to try and get to the rim a little bit more. He had some success doing that. Yeah, really nice spin move on Bogdanovic that got him a layup. It looked like Nurkic's spin moves. I would get Nurkic layups, you know? So it's like, do a little bit more of that and pass out a little bit more if you can't get downhill if you're not hitting that mid-range. If you hit a couple jumpers, then okay, go ahead and settle for that mid-range. I would prefer it to be in the latter half of the shot clock and not just, okay, that's what our entire offense is going to be, you know, try and run some offense, run some motion, move the ball, and then if we can't get anything productive out of that, then okay, we got A on the shot clock, let's throw it to Melo, and he will go get a shot off. Like, that I'm cool with. It's just, yeah, it's like, it's a two-headed issue there.
So there was a play, and I'll equate this back to Melo. So CJ drove, got stopped, got caught kind of under the basket towards the baseline, stood there for a minute. It looked like he might have traveled, but like he was waiting for someone to move or someone to throw to. Just stood there, like no one was moving, no one's moving. Finally, Gary Trent runs down the lane. CJ throws it to him. He gets a wide open lay-in because he cut the ball, right? And it's like they had to like think about it for 5 seconds before it actually happened. But, like, that's what I'm saying. When Melo posts up, he doesn't have, like, a cutter down the lane to say, oh, you missed Gary Trent Jr. cutting down the lane. You missed a wide-open Derrick Jones Jr. who would have had a dunk if you passed that in that situation, Melo. But because they don't have anyone. There's two people standing on the opposite side of the court just looking. Okay, Melo's got the ball. Cool. And then the person up top's just standing there doing the same thing. Like, that's the problem. Like, no one's moving. Like, so I can't even blame Melo for not passing when there's no cutters or no action to pass to outside of that. Yeah.
And here's the thing. That's not a personnel thing, it seems like. Derrick Jones Jr. was like the top, like Synergy had him ranked as the best cutter in the league last season. He loves to cut. And he was just sitting on the three-point line. He shot 5 of his 9 shots were threes today. He made 3 of 5, so that's good, but I don't want over 50% of his shots to be threes. And that's what I was worried about when we brought in Derrick Jones Jr., a 28% three-point shooter, that he's a terrible fit, because everybody we have at the forward positions just ends up sitting in the corner no matter what, no matter if they'd be better as a cutter. And it's like, already game one, you know, I'm encouraged because I think he can be a 35% three-point shooter and his three-point stroke looks good. So, like, that part is encouraging. Like, okay, even if he sits out there, he can at least make teams pay somewhat. But still, he's a guy who loves to cut, was the top cutter in the league, and we barely saw any cuts from him today. It's almost like no matter who we have, we can bring in a guy who loves to cut, and somehow we will turn him into a guy that just stands on the three-point line. And so, like, that's a signal to me. It's not a personnel thing. We have the best cutter in the league last season, and even he's standing out on the three-point line. It's like, that is a coaching or an emphasis issue to me. Like, you can't say that's personnel when you have a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. just standing out on the three-point line. And it transcends rosters. It transcends, like, multiple iterations of this roster the past, like, 5-6 years. So that's the thing, is like, doesn't matter who we have, we always end up being extremely stagnant and guys don't cut, which says to me it's an issue with it not being emphasized and it not being held accountable and it not being pushed hard enough from the coaching staff and us not watching film and focusing on, okay, you could have cut here, probably would have gotten a good shot, but you didn't, you need to cut there. Like, we're not doing that type of stuff, in my opinion. That's the issue, because I don't think it's a personnel issue.
And I'm on record, CJ, Melo, I think they would pass if they were being told to pass. Like, look for this guy in this situation. Melo was like, there was a couple times at the beginning of the first game against the Lakers in the playoffs where Melo moved the ball great because, like, you could tell it was designed for him to move the ball, not just ISO and everyone watch him. So, like, I feel like Melo has the ability to pass. He just hasn't, like, no one ever tells him to pass, or there's no option for him to pass. Same with CJ. Like, yes, CJ misses a lot of people because basically off his creation, he creates open people, but that's not an offensive thing. It's just like I just get frustrated because, like, if it was being hit home, guys, look at this situation. Look how open this guy is here. Look how you can pass yourself open and get a better shot here or whatever. Like, that isn't being hit home, obviously, and it's happened long before Melo even got here. That we've had problems being towards the bottom of the year, bottom of the league in assists. It's not a Melo thing. And I just wish that this year was different. We have the personnel to play a really fun, exciting team basketball, and we're gonna blow it because we want everyone to get their shots or whatever. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It needs to improve. If it doesn't improve in the next 10 games, like, that's an issue. Like, it should improve in the next 10 games. And we'll have games where, like, our offense is good because, like, a guy like CJ will get hot. That doesn't necessarily mean we're getting better shot selection or we're improving our style of play offensively, right? And I'll take, okay, if we're going to stagnate things, hopefully CJ gets hot and Dame gets hot and we could win that way. And we kind of have in the regular season in the past. But, like, that type of basketball, like, gets us killed in the playoffs. And I think, honestly, with just kind of the way the league is going, that type of play will lead to losses this season that could mean the difference between being in the play-in, which the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seeds have to deal with the play-in. Like, it'd be the difference between being in, like, one of those seeds and being a top 6 seed, and maybe, you know, being a top 4, having home court advantage. Like, that, I think that will be a difference maker this season more so than it has in the past, because it seems like defenses are getting better at really holding teams down that don't move the ball all that well, especially if, like, their elite player is a 6'3" guard compared to a guy like Giannis, who, like, you can defend him perfectly and he can isolate and still just use his athletic gifts to get buckets on the interior and drive the lane. So that's the thing, is, like, it's a problem I've seen for years. It's a problem going into this season. We need to improve it. It needs to change, and we have to be accountable on these issues from the start. Like, here's the thing: it's just like, I'm tired of you'll see a different team on opening night than you saw in Denver. I'm tired of, like, the talk. It has to happen.
It was the elevation.
Yeah, you know, it's the elevation. You're gonna see a different team. Like, we're gonna come home. We have days. Yeah, we're holding stuff back. We have days to figure this out. And then what happens on opening night is literally the carbon copy of Denver. A carbon copy. We were down 30 once again. We brought it back to 20, but we were down 30. Like, that's not okay. I'm tired of the talk. I need action. I need change. I need improvement in these areas. It needs to start happening now. And if it doesn't happen, I think Terry Stotts could lose his job, and he would probably deserve to lose his job for that. And this team will be in trouble, just in general, regardless of if we have a coaching change or not. Like, this team will be in trouble if they don't start improving that stuff right now. There's no reason why we can't improve it right now. There's no reason why we can't improve that stuff. So the optimistic person could say, well, there's no reason we can't improve it, so I'm hopeful we will. Okay, cool. I'm a little bit more pessimistic because we've seen these issues in past years and they haven't improved, so I'm a little bit more worried. But I'm like, if you have an optimistic mindset, honestly, I'm kind of jealous of you because I wish I was more optimistic in the situation I'm in. I wish I could think about this optimistically. Like,
you were optimistic about this.
I mean, yeah, it's preseason and all those issues, but the problem is those same things that could be excused away in the preseason, those excuses don't work for this game tonight. So That's why it's a different tone. But, you know, we have Houston 2 days from now, or 3 days from now. Who knows if that game is played? Houston had their game today postponed. It's very likely they'll be without James Harden. So, I mean, honestly, maybe that's a worse thing because we only change up our defense against James Harden, and our defense looks really good when we change it up against James Harden. So maybe we'll go back to drop scheme and we'll lose to a James Hardenless Rockets team. I don't know. But, like, that's a team without James Harden, and who knows, like, who else is going to be missing? Do you know what the deal is? Do you have, like, a update on that?
So apparently the rookie Kenyon Martin Jr. had, I want to say, someone come to his house and cut his hair or something, and then I don't know if he or someone else tested positive for COVID, and then they had to contract trace including John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, and I think there was another rookie that also tested positive, and so I don't know moving forward if they're gonna miss more games, but it's kind of new with this whole protocol thing, so I'm not sure like how many games they have to miss or how many days they have to be isolated and all that kind of stuff, but yeah,
and here's the thing, if we don't improve this stuff, it's very likely we're 1-3 with our only win being against that Rockets team. That game might get canceled. If that game gets canceled, it's very likely we're 0-3 with the way we're playing right now. Our 2 games after that are against the Lakers and the Clippers, who just beat the Lakers, and you're not going to beat those teams playing like this. No chance. We could lose to the Rockets without James Harden if we play like we did tonight. Like, that's definitely possible. Like, this could get bad early. But even if we start 1-3, man, you got the Warriors who looked very bad on opening night. You have 2 games against them, and then you play a lot of non-playoff teams. Okay, now that is when we will really know if we are losing to teams that teams like the Sacramento Kings, and I don't know, Denver lost to them on opening night, so it's like Denver was playing great in the preseason. They just lost to the Kings at home, so that stuff will happen, but I'm just saying if we don't improve these issues, then it's possible that we're dropping games to far, far less talented teams than we are because of these issues. And if that's the case, then, like, it'll be more evident than now, it'll be more obvious the issues are not personnel driven, like, at least I think. I think some people will start to realize that, but here's the thing is, like, if we improve these issues, we could be a really good team, and it's like, we'll see flashes. That's the part that has me most frustrated. It's like, we'll see flashes. The first 5 minutes of this game, I was so hyped. The team was playing, like, a perfect style of basketball, right? It helped that they, CJ hit a couple threes and whatnot, but I feel like CJ hit a couple threes because the offense had a lot of rhythm to it. The offense had ball movement and player movement, and I think
we even missed a couple of easy shots. Like in the first few minutes, you could say, we just missed a shot, like a couple shoghts. Like Nurk had a layup roll out, Dame had a layup roll out, or a short jumper roll out. And
it was tied. Like when the score was 19, when the score was Jazz 19 and Blazers 17. I thought, you know what, we're losing by 2, but I'm really happy with the way and the style in which we've played. Like, I think if we continue to do this, I think we'll win this game. We didn't continue to do it, and we were down 30, Like, that's the thing, is it's frustrating because you'll see flashes. So it's, like, in this team to be able to play that style of basketball. It just has to become, like, consistent, and not just with the starting lineup, it has to become consistent with the bench lineup. We haven't really seen flashes with the bench lineup. That's the part that worries me, is we haven't seen flashes of that, but I don't know, man. I mean, we'll see. Like, the first 5 minutes, it would be more discouraging if, like, we didn't see any flashes, but it's like we'll see flashes here and there where we look better than we pretty much ever did last year. When we looked good, it was because Dame was like hitting like 35 footers. You know what I mean? But like our style of play for the first 5 minutes of this game, I think was better for that 5 minute stretch than any 5 minute stretch all of last season. But then we resort back to the style of play in which we saw last season. So it's like, I think it's in this team, a good coach would be able to bring it out of this team consistently. So that is my final measuring stick for Stotts that I'll ever give him. If he can get this team playing like that consistently, I will have a much more favorable opinion of him because he would get the team playing the correct style of basketball and playing the right way. And that's pretty much what the coach is supposed to do. So if he did that, my opinion of him would be favorable. And I've been like optimistic in regards to Stotts going into this season. I've been optimistic and I've been like, okay, I'm going to give him a chance. And I will still give him a chance to get this right and to get this team playing the style of basketball it needs to play. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, he's never, ever going to do it. Like, I will give him a chance to get it right. But when the team isn't playing the right way, I will criticize him for it. And I will, hold him accountable. Just like I think anybody should hold the coach accountable, just like the coach should hold the players accountable, just like the players should hold themselves accountable. Like, that's how things work in sports. So the Olshay should be holding Terry Stotts accountable. Like, accountability is a big thing in sports and a big thing in regards to success, not just in sports, but just, you know, you have to hold yourself accountable in life. All right. And not to get philosophical and deep, but you got to hold yourself accountable in life. With this team, man, I'm gonna hold Terry Stotts accountable while still just praying he figures this out and can get this team consistently playing like how they did the first 5 minutes.
Speaking of holding accountable, can I mention a tweet I just read that Reese alerted me to?
Go ahead.
All right, so if Connor McIntosh is still in here, he responded to this Danny Meringue tweet, our best friend, saying, I don't want to see Melo playing more minutes than Covington one more time the rest of the year. Fair enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, Stotts playing Melo and Cantor as a front court pairing shows how clueless he is with his rotations. That's what Connor McIntosh says. Fair assessment, right?
Yeah.
So Danny Meringue's response is, listen, I don't like the front court of Melo and Cantor, but here's the deal. Do you know what was told to either Cantor or Melo to get them to come to Portland? I don't think Stotts is just out there saying, screw it, just roll them out and don't change a thing.
Wait. We traded for Cantor. What the hell is he talking about?
Well, he did make a choice. He had a choice of either going to Memphis or Portland, but still, this guy's game one is making excuses for the rotation, saying that we don't know what they were told. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. This is the same clown crap that he told us last year. And
oh my God, dude. Yeah. So you're holding, like, bro, if you, like, yeah. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, bruh, like, then let Cantor go to frickin' Memphis and use the biannual exception on a big who can play some defense. Go out. Yeah. How much did Nerlens Noel sign for? To be the backup center in New York.
It was pretty cheap, I believe.
Yeah, we could have signed him with the biannual exception. I don't really buy that. I feel like Cantor would have wanted to come here regardless, because it's not like there was many minutes in Memphis to go around for him. They got Jaren Jackson Jr., they got Valanciunas, they got Brandon Clark. They still got Gorgie Jang, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they still got Jang. It's not like there's really any minutes to go around for Cantor. And if Melo leaves, okay, cool. Like, you'll just play Nasir for a month and you'll get Collins back. Like, I understand the protecting Melo's legacy thing, but, like, either we have players that care about themselves more than the team, or we have, like, players that care about the team more than the players. If the players care about the team more than themselves, then they'll understand it. Then they'll be, they might not like it, but it's not going to become an issue. Like, I don't, like, that excuse doesn't fly for me because it's not like a logical, the train of logic does not add up at all.
Here's the thing, though. Connor said don't play Melo and Cantor together. So Danny's basically saying that we promised Melo he has to play with Cantor.
Yeah.
That's why I know he's lying and full of crap, and you can't trust anything he's saying. So, yeah, like, that's complete BS. Because he's trying to – he does this all the time. Like, I try not to do this. Tori tries not to do this. Like, obviously, if someone's trolling, we'll put them in their place and talk down to them or whatever. But this guy, if anyone says anything that he doesn't agree with, like, automatically, like, thinks they're stupid and tries to point that out to everyone in his
You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Yeah. You have no idea what NBA offenses are and the complexities of an offense. And then you ask him, okay, can you explain those complexities? And no response. You know what I mean? It's just a bunch of, like, surface level talk down to people, but never actually explain shit in a way that makes sense. It's frustrating.
We hadn't even signed Melo at the time Cantor signed, so how did we promise him that he had to play with Melo?
doesn't add up, man. It doesn't add up. So I mean,
but we don't know because we're not behind the scenes, so we're not as smart as him because he has all this inside information that they promised something that wasn't even possible to promise, or like, why would they care if that?
So, I mean, yeah, if you're new to our show, we do not we label ourselves as kind of the alternative to Blazers media because we don't like Blazers media and the way they cover the team and all the excuses that they make. And, like, here we go with just another excuse that doesn't make sense. And it's just like, no excuses. We got to hold the team accountable. But I want to touch on this, and sorry, I did miss this donation earlier. I just remembered. Kyle Wilson, if you're still in here, I appreciate the $5 donation you dropped earlier. But he dropped a donation and was talking about the commentators who just made excuse after excuse after excuse all game. And at the end, I thought it was funny. Jordan Kent was in the middle of making an excuse, and he said, no excuses though, but, and then he went and continued on the excuse, and it was like, you guys have been making excuses all game that make no sense, man. Tell us where we're struggling. Tell us where we need to fix. And it's like, I don't know. Honestly, I get frustrated with Lamar Hurd, but then it's like, he could be told not to criticize the team at all, which is absolutely ridiculous if that's the case. And the Blazers organization needs to stop being so damn sensitive and let its commentators hold them more accountable. But, because, like, here's the thing, is like, Lamar Hurd's talked about why Donovan Mitchell loves going up against drop scheme in the middle of the game in which we were running drop scheme and it was getting obliterated. And he was talking about how Donovan Mitchell likes building a head of steam and Gobert can build a head of steam, and it puts the big in a 2-on-1 against a guard who's coming straight at him with a head of steam and a really good lob target who has a head of steam, and it's very hard to defend that, and that's why Utah really likes going up against drop scheme. That's like, when he said that, it's like, yeah, maybe it's something where the organization has said you have to be positive and you can't be negative, and that's like his way of being critical without actually being critical, and which is a really good way to do it, because it's like, all I'm seeing is just drop scheme picked apart, drop scheme picked apart, drop scheme picked apart, and then he talks about why Utah loves going against drop scheme, and then we continue to run drop scheme for another quarter, and our defense sucks just the same as when we started running drop scheme. Like, why would anything change? They love going against it for all the reasons he stated, so it's like, I don't know. In regards to them, it gets frustrating here, excuse after excuse, but that is a possibility you have to keep in mind. I was a little vocal on Twitter about, man, these excuses, I can't stand them, and I even said I like Lamar Hurd, but I can't stand these excuses he's making, which is true. I can't stand them, but he might have to make them as part of his job.
Yeah.
Which is
I don't blame him.
ridiculous.
It's just, it sucks that that's what you have to listen to when you're frustrated. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. The drop scheme, though, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. They literally just had to set one pick to get a wide open three by the ball handler without even having to pass the ball. Like, they just walk into a three, and we continue to drop the big. And then in the second half, when Nurk tried to double team, he was never hedging it properly. He was behind the pick, kind of. So, he was double teaming him, but he wasn't really double teaming him. So it was like he was dropping anyway. So there was no effect of a double team or stuff like that. So, it's just,
I wish guys would go under screens more too. It seems like we try and fight over too many screens. It's like, okay, if we're gonna drop the big, and the guard is just going to dribble into a wide open three anyway, just go under and make him shoot behind the screen, which is a little bit deeper, instead of being able to dribble right up to the line. Just go under the screen then. And that also limits penetration. If we go under the screen, we can get back in front easier and not let the guy drive. So there's a lot of situations where it's just like, why are we fighting so hard to go over the screen? It doesn't make sense. It's honestly, Melo's pick and roll defense is far better if he goes under the screen. There's a possession where he went under a screen, kept the ball handler in front of him, completely shut down the pick and roll, and then he fought so hard to go over, he got screened off. The ball handler had a ton of space because they were dropping the big, and I don't remember what the play was. I just remember that they scored because of it. And it's just like, why do we have to go under every screen? Or why do we have to go over every screen? Why can't we go under more? I don't understand that as well.
And I am so sick of hearing, well, so-and-so can't do that. So-and-so can't do that. You can't hedge a pick because this person can't hedge it. That's such BS, man. We had to listen to that all year last year about Whiteside. When I saw Whiteside in the first game, just like Cantor tonight on a play, beautifully hedge a screen, recover on his man, they don't score. Unfortunately, tonight, Melo fumbled the rebound and Gobert got it anyway. But if Melo just grabs that rebound, we stop them on a possession where it was beautiful. Cantor hedged the pick, stopped the ball handler. The guy recovered. Cantor recovered back to Gobert before he could get the ball. Gobert ends up getting the ball, missing the shot, and we should have been in a position to get the rebound. And that's what we've been asking for. Why aren't we seeing that coverage? Why did we not see that more than one play tonight? It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. Last year, people kept saying, well, Whiteside can't do that. Whiteside can't do that. I saw him do it. I saw him. And if it's a case where he can't do it, let him prove that he can't do it on the court instead of just giving up wide open threes, because you're giving up wide open shots anyway. So if he ends up not being able to do it, what's the point? Like, what does it matter? He's giving up a wide open shot in the drop scheme. Why not try to hedge and recover? Because maybe every once in a while you could force a turnover or do something different. So I don't get the people who say, "Oh, we can't run a hedge and recover because Cantor's not good in those situations, or he's a terrible defender."
He was terrible in drop scheme anyway.
Like 130 points tonight. What the hell? Like, so dropping him is better? Like, who cares if he's a better
I don't
defender?
understand that, man. Oh, he would be terrible at hedging. Well, he's terrible running drop scheme tonight, so why not switch things up and see how it works? That's a great point. Like, let him prove that he's terrible. It's like people say he's terrible without ever actually seeing him hedge. And the one time we see him hedge, he does it properly, and he does it far better than he was defending the rim as a dropped big off the pick and roll. Like, he hedged far better than he was dropping. So it's like, let's see more of that and just see, when the defense is really that bad, change things up just to see how it looks, because it can't really get much worse than it was tonight. It couldn't get much worse, so change things up, make an adjustment. Maybe make an adjustment before we're down 20. That would be cool too. Maybe once we get down 10 and have given up like three or four open threes or layups in a row, then maybe, try something different, adjust a little bit. That'd be cool. Like, there was a stretch in the second half, I think it was around when the Jazz had like 55 points or so, where we stopped dropping the big and we brought the big up to help with the screen for like 4 possessions in a row. And I don't think Utah scored on any of those possessions. I think they might have gotten one bucket that they got just like out of isolation or something. But it's like, shoot, okay, if they score a contested jumper in isolation, that's far better than the wide open shots we're giving up. So it's like, that's still a defensive possession where bringing the big up helped. And our defense looked better when we were bringing the big up to help with the screen compared to dropping them. So don't move away from that. Like, they need to employ that more. And I'm hoping that it was something like they were worried, like, dang, we look really bad trying to do this in the preseason. We're just going to go back to drop scheme and see if it can be better. And then they see it tonight and it's like, dang, our drop scheme was just as bad as our defense in the preseason. So we really need to change it up and bring more pressure on the ball. Like, that is what I'm hoping for. Mm-hmm. But Stotts loves drop scheme. He loves it. Also, you know who loves going against it? Damian Lillard, which is funny. Like, he's been on the record saying he loves going against teams that run drop scheme against him because he just gets wide open pull-up threes off the screen. Like, he dropped 61 on Dallas in the bubble last season because Dallas was simply playing drop scheme all game long. And it was like Dame would pull up from 3, and then like Porzingis, who was dropping schemes, would get worried and he would be instructed to drop, so he'd drop, but then he'd like start to cheat up to try and take away the 3, and Dame would just hezzy, bring the big up, and blow by him. Like, Dame ate that type of defense alive, and he's been on the record saying he loves going against it, which is funny because that's what Stotts loves to run and he's always run it. So that whole thing is just mind-boggling to me. We'll see how it develops. I like the philosophy they had at first going into the season. Like, I'm not saying never run it, but it needs, like, he needs to be situationally better in terms of the adjustments he makes and in terms of the schemes that he runs. And we shouldn't have ran drop scheme for like 44 of the 48 minutes tonight.
Also, if you're going to run drop scheme, you have to teach your players how to get through screens quicker and not die on picks. So the problem is we don't even try to fight through picks sometimes. We just let the guy screen us, and it's almost like the guy getting screened thinks it's a switch or something, and so he doesn't even bother trying to fight through and maybe contesting a shot within a couple seconds. Instead, it takes him like 3 seconds to get through a screen, and by that time the shot's already off and he was wide open. So, like, you can't do drop scheme, and that's why Milwaukee at times can get away with it. Utah has gotten away with it sometimes in the past, maybe not when they play against Dame, but like they have guards who can get through those picks quicker. And if you get through them and can navigate those screens better and be right behind, like we're going through the picks instead of through the shooter or the ball handler. If you just follow the ball handler, the guy, the screener has to move to get you, and that oftentimes will be an offensive foul. Otherwise, you get through it cleanly if you're going skinny right behind it, but instead we go wide through picks, so it's really easy to pick us. We don't even try to get through them sometimes. So, like, that's my problem is, and this has been a staple of Stott's teams, especially since the LaMarcus team with Wes and Batum. We saw Ariza come over last year. He was great at navigating through screens, but that's because he's been taught properly throughout his career. So now we have guys like Dame and CJ who have been under Stotts their entire career. I've never had another coach in the NBA. So they played at small schools too, where they didn't really have to focus that much on defense or whatever. So they don't even know how to get through a screen after 8 years in the NBA. And that's what's frustrating. You can't run a drop scheme if you're not going to have both guys on the same page and running it in unison and trying to recover quickly onto your guy. Because that's the whole point of a drop scheme, is to give the guy going through the screen enough time to recover to his man without letting him drive. Mm-hmm. And if we're not recovering to the guy shooting in time, it doesn't matter what scheme we run. If we have poor closeouts on, if they make a pass and then we're not closing out properly either, that doesn't matter what scheme we run. And that's not personnel based. Those are all technique and issues with our scheme.
That is a phenomenal thing you bring up, because you hear all these people talking about, man, Kenner can only drop, he can't run, he can't hedge a screen, and then we see him hedge a screen and he does so almost perfectly tonight. But they don't address the fact that our guards do not get through screens properly, and you need guards and you need perimeter players that get through screens well in order to run drop scheme, and if they don't, you need to provide them with some help on the screen in the service of bringing a big up to trap, or bringing a big up to hedge to give the guard a little bit more time, to allow the guard to maybe go under the screen instead, and he can be more decisive on going through the screen whatever way gets him through fastest. Because here's the problem: if you drop the big and you go under a screen, it automatically gives up a 3, right? So that's why the scheme is generally run where you fight over. The problem is, we're so bad at fighting over that we still give up a 3 anyway, because we can't get back to the guard's hip, and the guard just creates separation and pulls up from 3. So that's the thing, is like, in terms of personnel, our personnel is more suited to hedge and to trap and to do that type of stuff, because our personnel isn't suited to run drop scheme, because we literally don't get through screens at all. And some of it is, as you said, fixable mistakes, technique thing. The Dame struggling to get through screens isn't because he has some athletic limitation or anything. It's his technique isn't proper, and that's another kind of coaching thing. That's like, dang, Dame is in season number 8 and still doesn't know proper technique getting through a screen. How is that possible?
How many of the best defenders in the NBA are like the most athletic? I mean, I guess you could say some of the big men, but like Gobert isn't like super athletic. He's long and lean, but like, and that helps him with blocks. But like guys like Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley and stuff like that, they're not more gifted than any player on our team athletically. They just have the effort and want it more and know how to navigate stuff like that. And that's the frustrating part. I don't understand how, and this goes for the players too. Like, I don't know how you could not be embarrassed enough to not want to show more effort on that end or something. Like, I don't get it. It's embarrassing, man. I'd be humiliated if I was a player on this team watching our defense get abused. And Dame posted that thing about the Raiders defense. I forgot.
He said, how is our defense this bad, man?
Yeah. And now that's being thrown in his face every freaking game.
I know.
It's bad, man.
Yeah. It's
Westbrook. Do we even want to watch it?
No. I don't even know exactly what it is, but I assume it's the Stotts interview. No, we do not want to. So here's the thing. Like, hopefully the next stream on the 26th will be better. We don't have Blazers Uprise live until the Monday, the 28th. So a little bit of a layoff here, a couple days off. And, we got Christmas, of course. And yeah, so I'm hoping on the 26th we see improvement, man. Like, honestly, it's like we kind of need to win that game, but it's also as much about, okay, we need to fix these issues and we need to start fixing them now. Because after that, we got 2 really good teams, man. It is going to be really hard to beat them playing like this. So, we'll bring you that post-game show. Hopefully it's after a win and we can kind of like chill and relax with you guys. Normally we stream longer after wins and we don't go as necessarily in depth. Thing is, if this continues to happen, we won't have as much to say because it's all been said pretty much right now. You know what I mean? It'll be a lot like last season where it's like different games, same stuff. That was kind of the motto last season. So hopefully this team can figure this stuff out. It's still, one game in, but they got to start figuring this stuff out right now. And we will see if they can. We will see if they will. Only time will tell in regards to that. So anyway. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's stream. Wish we had a better result for opening night, but I can't wait till the Blazers get their first win and that post-game show after that. And because the moods are completely different, and I don't want the feelings I had last year. So fingers crossed the Blazers can figure this out. And if they can't, maybe we'll see some coaching changes. As I said, only time will tell. Tune in to we launched our website. I still need to drop a seasonal content update. I've been talking about that for like a week and a half. Just kind of, the preseason was rough, and I kind of just took a couple days off this weekend. But that will be going out tomorrow, and we will drop the seasonal content announcement. I'll talk about the website that is launched. You can go visit our website, blazersuprise.com. We are lightly uploading articles right now. It's kind of a work in progress. For anybody that I said could write for us, I will reach out to you very shortly and get things set up with you so we can get consistent content on our website. We have written content there. Other than that, there's really
happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays. Hope you have a good Christmas. At least the Blazers don't play on Christmas. Hopefully you guys enjoy your Christmas. Christmas is definitely weird this year, and your Christmas might be different. I hope you still enjoy it, and hope you have a happy holiday, whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate, I don't even remember the holidays, Hanukkah, any of that. Hope whatever you celebrate. Hope you just have a good time, and hopefully everything's going good for you outside of this Blazers team right now, because this Blazers team right now is not going good so far. Well, hopefully that changes. I can't believe it's almost 2021. That's kind of crazy. I'm ready to wrap up this year. Maybe the Blazers will play better in 2021. Maybe the calendar just needs to change. This year's cursed, man. My
mom reminded me that if you want to see my son, he was the honorary captain tonight. Yeah. It's on the Trailblazers Twitter feed.
Yeah, Eric's son was the honorary captain. So don't let him be the honorary captain again, Eric. We lost by 20. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys for your support as always. Thank you guys for tuning in despite the loss. Thank you guys for ranting with us and just kind of letting us voice our frustrations and vent. It always helps us out after a tough loss like this one, and I hope it helps you out as well. You can follow our channel at Blazers Uprise YT. You can follow us at Tory Jones YT for me, at Hoopsjock for Eric. You can subscribe to our second streaming channel. We stream Mondays and Thursdays. That is going back to 3:30 p.m. The stream today got messed up due to some technical things. Today we were streaming on a Wednesday just because tomorrow's Christmas Eve and there's no games. But that'll be Mondays and Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. We'll preview the games that day. We'll pick against the spread. We'll do picks against the spread for the games that day, and we'll talk about some Blazer basketball and some stuff around the NBA on Mondays and Thursdays. So go subscribe to that channel. The link is down in the description below. There's more links down there if you want to check them out and check out all our stuff. But with that, that's a wrap for this post-game show. Hopefully the Blazers can turn things around. I got my fingers crossed, and just praying this team can figure some of these things out. Until next time, hope you guys have a good rest of your night and a happy holidays. And until then, peace out. Go Blazers.